Hello and welcome back to another episode of Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host, Collin Sheffield. Alongside me, head coach Jake Russell. Coach, it was a tough one. You went to overtime with the number 12 team in the nation. It was a matchup it lived up to the billing of exactly how it was supposed to go. You had an amazing atmosphere, just came up a little bit short, but an amazing game nonetheless.
Awesome football game. Two teams that I thought played really good overall. You know, you can see why they're going to finish as a top 10 team. They're built to win playoff games, the way they play, really solid in all three phases. And I was just super proud of our guys to get down 17-3, hadn't caught a lot of momentum up to that point, and then to battle back, have the ball with 5 minutes to go. We got a little rhythm, got a couple first downs. And a tough holding penalty there on the last drive kind of sets you back. Great job with the punt team, kind of pinning them back. And then they got in a situation where they're kind of just playing for overtime, and our defense did a good job creating a little chaos. And the ball's on the ground at one point, and those little opportunities were there. And then obviously in the overtime period, really one of their only explosive pass plays, good play, good throw, good catch, all those things. And we still stopped them twice on the 1 yard line, which we had done a bunch of times throughout the game. And they end up getting it in. And then obviously just the fumble, it's just part of football. And they did a great job stripping the ball. Trey trying to make a great play. He had played really well all day. I was just so proud of our guy, heartbroken for our guys. They had worked so hard for that moment to have a chance to win the conference championship. And so that goal's off the table, but I still think there's a lot of things to play for this week.
We'll take a look at the box score. The Tigers lost in overtime to the Georgetown Tigers, 24-17. Jagger Gillis threw for 237 yards and a touchdown. Trey Bass rushed for 62 yards and a touchdown. And Ellis Reed, 8 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack. He was all over the place. He's the NCCAA Defensive Player of the Week. These guys were flying around the field. Let's talk about that first half a little bit. It was one of those games that almost gave me shades back to just a week ago where you played Bethel. It almost turned into a punting match. It was a defensive stalemate. Everybody was going at it, and they were able to strike first. But you drive down the field after not having much momentum, and it almost seems kind of starting to get a little bit usual. That 2-minute drill just kind of picks up the pace of the offense. You put 3 on the board. How do you feel there right after halftime?
Yeah, felt great at halftime. Actually, even with the score the way it was, you could feel the shift in the game with that 2-minute drive. It kind of put them, on their heels for the first time all game. They had done a really good job defensively. There's a few small things where we couldn't quite get that rhythm on offense. Thought the defense played really well, and we've got to figure out a way, and myself leading the offense, a way to start better on offense. Early in the year we were doing a great job of that, and we were hitting these lulls in the middle of the game. Now we're starting really slow and then really picking it up in the middle of the game and finishing well in most cases. But, just super proud of the defense all day. They only gave up 10 points, right? The pick six added the other 7 there in regulation, and they've done a great job, Coach Ford and his staff. Just stopping the run. I mean, that's one of the best running backs and running attacks in NAIA. And a really good team, really experienced team. They've still got a lot of guys that have played a lot of football that were in the semifinals last year. And for guys to come out and play like that and have chances to win the game, I thought was a huge deal. And, obviously the moral victories and everything we'll learn from this is a big part of it. And, I hope that very soon we're back in one of those situations. And I hope a bunch of things go our way this week around the country to where we can slide in the playoffs.
So the second half, you go down 17-3, around 4 or so minutes left in the third quarter. You're late. It's 17-3. Pressure's starting to mount a little bit, but the Tigers responded well. A lot of big momentum plays from the defense. Offense starts picking it up. They're driving down the field, scoring. Now you have a tie ball game and a lot of chaos ensuing. Like you mentioned, the run game got going super well there. What did you see differently in that second half to allow that run game to open up? Because it was negative rushing yards going into the half, and then you ended up almost being close to out-rushing a team that rushes the ball pretty well.
Yeah, I saw a team that's back got put up against the wall, and all those guys that have worked so hard since January for that moment and since fall camp started at the beginning of August. And I saw a team that, with the back against the wall came out swinging. And I think sometimes our team almost plays the best when they have that situation. Even some of the moments we've had through the year, they've always responded. We've always been able to make the stop and go down and drive and have a chance to win the game. Even from the first game of the year against U-Pike, even with the loss against Lindsay, we got the stop. We drove all the way down the field and finished, a foot short. And even in the game Saturday, to come back and have an 80-yard touchdown drive, a stop, followed by a 95-yard touchdown drive. I mean, how awesome is that? Like I said, the defense got even more stops, even after some big plays on their side in the special teams games. And that's really all you can ask for. I mean, again, a great football game. It's kind of really an enjoyable and fun football game overall to watch. And obviously you want to be on the winning side of those type of games. But I think it's just going to be a super valuable experience for our program for years to come. But really, hopefully, some things happen where we do slide in the playoffs. Those are what playoff games look like every single week.
So Georgetown has had a couple of these games, it seems like, down the stretch, even just a week prior against the University of the Cumberlands, your next opponent, where they get outgained in offense, and yet they still somehow find a way to come back. And honestly, that just seems like the mark of a team that is just, they've been there, they've done that, and they know how to feed that pressure.
Absolutely. In our 2 losses, we've won the majority of the statistical things on paper, right? But at the end of the day, that means nothing in football, right? Stats are a lot of times just very deceiving because you could probably look at a handful of things each game and be able to determine the winner. But sometimes it's not about who gains the most yards, who keeps the other team from gaining yards. There's a lot of things that go within a football game way beyond just numbers on a piece of paper. And like you said, that's a sign of a great program, a program that expects to win, knows how to win, has won. Like I said, they were in the NAI semifinals last year and had a good shot to go to the finals. And, they had that experience that we didn't have. Now, again, I didn't think for a moment that our team didn't think we were going to win. Yeah. And I didn't think for a moment, our team ever, kind of had that feeling like, well, we've never been here. We don't know what to do. And they attacked it, and that's just kudos to our coaches for preparing them, for the way our guys have practiced when we've practiced overtime. And I told our staff this a bunch of times last few weeks, all year really. I've never once in my life playing football, which is crazy, been in an overtime game or coached in an overtime game. So that was my first one. But luckily we had practiced that situation. We were very confident going into that we were going to be able to win in an overtime period. But like you said, they on their side probably expected the same thing. It's just a great game, but looking forward to see how our guys bounce back in this last week.
Well, Coach, we'll step away and give you a break. When we come back, we'll sit down with halfbacks coach Bryson here on the CU Sports Network.
Jason, let's go see your room.
No, that's not right. How was it? Is it good?
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, but with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. And you can change the outcome. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back to Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host, Collin Sheffield. Alongside me, halfbacks and running backs coach, Coach Jacob Bryson. Coach Bryson, we've kind of crossed paths a little bit, haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk, so why don't you take me through a little bit of where you're from and your experience in football up to this point?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Erlanger, Kentucky. It's about 10 minutes south of Cincinnati, Ohio, a place I'm really near the heart with. But coached at Union College for 7 years. Actually, Coach Russell was my first boss in a way, really. He was the offensive coordinator. I was coaching tight ends there as well. Been there, coached there, was special teams coordinator, running backs coach there for 4 years. But after that, and then came here in the spring and loved it ever since.
So just coaching football, no playing football?
Yeah, so I played football my whole life growing up. My senior year, kind of had a bad injury, hurt at my back pretty bad. That was the end of that, right? So after then, just moved on to coaching and loved it ever then.
So what is it about coaching that you love so much that keeps you wanting more?
Yeah, I think the relationships part of it is something that's really important to me. I like being able to be a positive impact on people that have a similar upbringing that I do, right? I mean, I look at kids that I've coached and seeing them graduate kind of makes you like emotional and like, man, I really am having an impact on somebody's life, and that's a really cool feeling to have.
So was it Coach Russell that brought you here? What made you want to take this leap over to Campbellsville?
Yeah, so I think in my professional career, it was time for a change. I thought God had let me at Union for that long to have an impact and see a couple kids graduate and make sure that they were okay for the rest of their life. And obviously Coach Russell and I are really close. And I called him one day and I was like, hey, Coach, do you have anything open? If you do, let me know. And he called me back and said he had an opportunity, and I said, I'm there. All right, Coach Russell is somebody I look at like a mentor, and if he ever need anything from me, it's going to be hard for me to say no. So finally I gave in and was like, yeah, I'll come up there and join you.
So what got you into halfbacks and running backs?
So when I was a student at Union, we kind of were understaffed a lot, and Coach Russell came in, took over the offense, and was calling the plays, and we didn't have anybody coaching the tight ends. So as a joke one day, I was like, hey, I'll coach them for you if you need me to. And he was like, okay, yeah, we'll think about it. And then I think on a Tuesday of the first game week, or maybe a couple weeks before, he's like, hey, you're going to coach these guys. You got to be ready to go. And I was like, oh, my Lord, what do I do now? So ever since then, I've just been stuck with him, and I love it. And I think he gives you all the run game aspects, the pass game aspects, and it's just a great marriage between the two.
What's it been like coaching guys like Jack Busey, Jackson McClendon that's kind of stepped in there? What are those guys like?
They are a hoot, to say the least. They're a fun group. Jack is an unbelievably hard worker, super serious about the game. And then a guy like Jackson and Jarrett Finn and Brock, they're just the life of the room. They joke and laugh, but when it's time to work, they're able to flip that switch really well. But being around Jackson every day, you never know what he's going to do. So he's fun to be around, keeps you on your toes for sure.
How is it preparing those guys? Because not only do they have to be good in the receiving game, they have to have good hands, but they also get used a lot in motion. They get used a lot in blocking, run blocking, pass blocking. They got to do all of it. They're kind of a 3, 4, 5 tool kind of player.
Absolutely.
So how tough is that trying to get your guys ready in that aspect?
It's definitely tough. I think we do a great job throughout the week of scheduling what our individual period looks like. So on Tuesdays, that's a run game focus. Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the day we get the second end of period, it's a pass game focus. So we're hitting everything for 15, 20 minutes a week, which is a good thing. You know, they're ready to go. And I think one thing from this group this year compared to last year where they didn't have a position coach is we have a scout meeting every week, and we're watching cut-ups of guys and understanding the scouting report and doing all those things and seeing the looks that they're going to see. And Coach Lane as well does a phenomenal job with all the run game looks. And we work together and collaborate, and they're seeing that 30 times a week before the game, which I think is a big part of how much well they've played this year.
So you talk about the running backs. You're over them as well. You have guys like Trey Bass, C.A. Collins, of course now Archella Smith heads back into the lineup with C.A. kind of slinged up. He's out. So what's that been like, at least maybe getting Archellis back and being able to put in, you know, you think you're losing one of your heads to your two-headed snake, but then Archellis comes in and he makes it almost all okay.
Yeah, Archellis has definitely been the surprise of the year for me personally. Didn't have him a whole lot in the spring, and then he was out the first 5 weeks, so I was unsure of him what was going to happen. And he just came in, hasn't missed a beat. I mean, Archellis is dynamic with the football. There's no question about that. Very athletic kid, and honestly is the heart and soul sort of the room right now. Excuse me, just because he brings so much energy and passion for football. Him and Trey Bass is the leader of the group, and our group especially, we talk about being rooted in substance, which means basically our success isn't just going to come from us talking about it. We're going to put the work in, and they've done that up to this point, and I couldn't be more proud of them.
What's it like dealing with a running back group that almost in this offense, it seems like you have to pass to set up the run. Most people run to set up the pass. It seems like this offense passes, and they set your guys up for a better run. We saw that against Georgetown. Negative rushing yards turns to almost outgaining Georgetown. So what's that like?
It's definitely a battle, uphill battle, because those guys want the ball in their hand. They're competitors, right? And I would love it. I think they're ready to go any moment. But they do a great job of understanding that they're not just going to run the football. They've got to be helping in pass protection, catching the ball out of the backfield, which they've done a phenomenal job. I think Trey is the 5th leading receiver on the team or something of the sort, so he's doing a great job with that. And it's just creating balance, and at the end of the day, they want to win. So whatever we got to do, we're going to do it.
So far, your first year here in Campbellsville, what's been some of your favorite parts, at least maybe around the university or the football team?
Definitely the atmosphere on game day is something that's insane. It's wild. People are really invested, and I think that's a great thing and a great opportunity for our guys to see that. This is like a big-time college football field at a small college, which I love, and I think that's amazing. The people here are so nice. They really care about CU football when I'm just out in the town or hanging out with some of the coaches, right? They're just always asking, how's the team doing? How are we feeling about this week? Right, we'll see you at the game, and then they're actually at the game, right? It's not just a thing they're saying. So I think that's really cool.
Personally, what's some of your favorite things about Campbellsville since moving here?
Man, I love going to the bowling alley. I'm a big bowler.
Okay.
That's just, kind of odd for being a football coach, but I love it. I think my favorite thing throughout the season is we have a brunch club. Me and some of the coaches every Friday, we go eat lunch and just talk about the game and all that stuff. So that's been really fun for me as well.
Well, we're coming to a close here. I think you said you wanted to give a shout-out. I'd be glad to let you do
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
now.
Want to give a shout-out to my running backs and tight ends. I told y'all I love you guys, so there you go.
Well, Coach, thank you for coming on. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, we're going to step away for a quick break. When we come back, we'll sit down with head coach Jake Russell to talk about the upcoming matchup with the University of the Cumberlands here on Under Center with Jake Russell.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to the final segment of Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host, Collin Sheffield. Alongside me, head coach Jake Russell. Coach, before we get into this next game, it was senior day against Georgetown. Let's talk a little bit about these seniors who played their final game, at least of the regular season here at Finley Stadium. Some, maybe we don't know if they're coming back yet or not. Obviously, that's to be determined later on. But talk about what these seniors have meant to this team.
Oh, I mean, just, the big challenge when I got here 2 springs ago was that we needed to change the narrative of Campbellsville football. While the football program has had some great stints in its history, we're looking to build something long-term, sustained success. We just talked about, Georgetown and how they expect to win. And I saw something that said they've won like 23 of the 37 possible MSC titles for football. And that's what we want to build. We want to be in a game like we were Saturday and win those games every single year and not just be hoping and saying there's a chance to go to the playoffs. But, when the season starts, people say, well, we know Campbellsville is going to be in the playoffs. We know they're going to be in the mix. And, that was the big challenge, and they've answered the bell. There was a great group of guys that were here that spring. There wasn't a lot of players here, but there's been a really solid group of guys, and several of those guys went through senior day. Then there was a group of guys that came with us from our previous school, and kind of the first few of those guys are graduating, which is really cool personally to see because those are the first guys I've coached for 4 straight years. And then there was some really awesome stories of guys that came into our program over the last 2 years, whether it was when the coaching staff came in, they've been here 2 seasons, or just guys that were looking to play their last year, some as grad transfers, some that just had 1 year of eligibility left. And, man, those guys have just been awesome. To have 24 seniors, like you said, there's probably a handful of those guys that will have the option to have another year of eligibility. But that's a special group, and we're really going to realize how special that group is, when we get to next season. And all those guys that were contributing, not just on the field, but in the locker room and their leadership, when they're all gone, it's going to make a lot of other people have to step up. So amazing group of young men, just very proud. A bunch of them are graduating either December or in the spring, and that's really the biggest thing for them.
So you go on the road this weekend to Williamsburg, Kentucky. You're going to take on the University of the Cumberlands, who's had some odd wins. They've had some odd losses. They've only lost by a few points to some of the top teams in the nation, and they've won a few by only a few points to some of the lesser teams in this league. And it's hard to make heads or tails of what this team truly is. Have you all been able to gather, a little bit of a better understanding now that you've had a chance to kind of dive into the film a bit?
Yeah, they're a really good football team. They're tough to beat, right? The goal of, the game as a coach, is that, worst case scenario, we want to have an opportunity to win the game at the end of the game. And they've done that pretty much every game. Even you talked about 2 weeks ago, they were driving and had crossed the midfield down 2, and they've got one of the best kickers in NAI football. He's really awesome. And they had a great shot to win that game. The odds even at one point were probably that they would win the game. And then on the other side, Georgetown finds a way to win, as we talked about. But they're really good. This is not an opponent that you can just go in and kind of have that, effect of a really tough loss the week before and kind of drag through practice and show up in their stadium on their senior night where there's always a lot of emotion and expect to just, walk out there and win. So it's going to take a really good performance. We need a victory, and we need a convincing victory to keep some of those hopes of postseason play alive.
So on their offensive side of the ball, they have a 2-quarterback set, really. It's a rotation of 2 guys. And, of course, we had that a little bit, but we don't use Justice as much in the passing game and everything else as much as Jagger does. They use them almost interchangeably. They have almost the same similar stats. How is it preparing for a team that uses 2 quarterbacks like that?
It's really tough because you have to, within a practice, take time to game plan around both of those individual guys. While they do both, as you said, have the ability to run and pass the ball, their skill sets are different, and that's the reason they're doing that. And so now, if we get half an hour of scout team at today's practice, we're going to have to intentionally spend time and say, hey, this guy's in the game. Hey, treat this 10 minutes like this guy's in the game. Hey, it's third and this is when they bring in this guy, and this is what they like. So now all of a sudden it becomes almost information overload. I think it's been a huge advantage on our side, like you said, with Justice, that other teams are having to do the same thing with him, and he's provided a great spark a lot of the year as well. But they're a team that has an identity. They run wide zone, and they run it really, really well. And they're going to run it, and they're going to run it a bunch, and they're going to stick to it. And it's really been effective for them. And then now I think their QB play has elevated a little bit from last season. Their defense is awesome. They're playing really well. And then they have some of the best special teams, and like I mentioned, the kicker in the nation. So we are going to have to play really well to come out of this with a victory and play really well and possibly great to really have that convincing victory, which would be our big goal this week, to put our best resume on the table for, Saturday.
You also have a 2-back set as well, guys that they use interchangeably at the running back position. One of those has almost wide receiver-like numbers in the catch game. So what's it like trying to defend a running back that can come in and be a threat in the passing game as well?
Yeah, same deal. And I think our running backs, Archelaus had the big touchdown catch. Our running backs have done a great job of that as well. It's really hard to defend the running back in the passing game because, usually at best you're getting them matched up with a linebacker, and those guys aren't always the most comfortable out there in space versus a super shifty and talented guy, like we've got. And they've got, as you said, they've got 2 phenomenal running backs. The guy that doesn't start would start at most places in the country for them. And, they've both got the ability to run the ball really well. You mentioned the one guy's got the ability to kind of get out in space. They use them in a lot of different creative ways, getting them the ball. And just like we said with the quarterbacks, we'll probably have jerseys on with their numbers on this week and say, hey, 8's going in the game. Hey, 10's going in the game. Hey, they're both in the game. What do we expect now? And they're doing a really good job with that. And that's why you mentioned that they've beat some really good teams and they've played some really good teams down to the last plays of the game.
And this is a really good defense, like you mentioned. Obviously, their secondary is really good, about 13 interceptions, I think, on the season for them, a lot of forced fumbles. But this is also a team which I think for the past 2 weeks you haven't really gotten behind the sticks too much, haven't had a defensive line on the other side that's gotten into the backfield as much. But this is a team that seems to get into the backfield quite a bit.
Super talented up front. Really good in the box. And then, as you said, you can be really good up front, but if you struggle in the secondary, you can't really bring the pressure as you want. But as you said, they're super talented in the secondary. Long, athletic, great ball skills, forcing some interceptions. And a lot of those interceptions are also because they're getting a lot of pressure up front. Our offensive line has played so well. We gave up 1 sack in the game Saturday, and that was on the quarterback. And he knows that. It was a 2-minute drive, and he's trying to make some big plays, and we ended up did. But we've done a great job protecting the quarterback. And when you talk about protecting the quarterback, it's not always just the offensive line. It's the mechanics of the play. It's the QB making the right decision. It's the running back in pass protection. But at the end of the day, it starts with those guys up front. And they're going to have a huge challenge this week. Reminds me a little bit of Bethel, where they're not just big up front, they're athletic. And, this will be a great challenge for our guys. And so, we're sitting here saying again and again and again all these strengths that they have. This is a team that's probably better than their record, but this is also just a reality of playing in the Mid-South Conference where, right now, I think they're second to last, 6 out of 7 in the conference. They've got to be the best 6th-place team in conference in the nation. So they're a good football team. We're going to have to play good.
Well, Coach, best of luck to you this weekend. Can't wait to see you guys down there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Tigers go on the road to take on the University of the Cumberlands Patriots. That one in Williamsburg, Kentucky, this Saturday, set for 1:30 p.m. You can find that on 88.7 The Tiger, as well as on the TuneIn app. Myself and Khalil Baker will be down there. We'll be on top of the roof. It might be a little loud. The speakers tend to be right next to us up there on the roof, so just hang in there with us, bear with us, and we'll bring you the best coverage we possibly can for the final regular game of the season. And thank you as well for tuning in to Under Center with Jake Russell.